9 days after I buried my husband, I sat beneath a ceiling of white roses at my younger sister's engagement dinner and watched her fiancé announce that they had sold the building where I lived and worked. Trent Vale stood at the front of the private dining room in a navy suit, one hand around Paige's waist and the other holding a leather folder as if he were presenting an award. Behind him, the windows of the restaurant looked out over the Savannah River, where the evening light shimmered across the water, and tourists wandered past without knowing my life was being dismantled 10 feet away. "Before Paige and I begin our future together," Trent said, smiling at our relatives, "we want to thank Noah for helping make it possible." Hearing my husband's name spoken in that room felt like someone pressing a thumb into an open wound. Noah had died at 31 after a delivery truck crossed the center line during a rainstorm. One moment, he had been calling me from the road to ask whether we needed cinnamon, and the next, a state trooper was standing outside our apartment above the bakery. I had spent the previous 9 days moving through condolences, casseroles, insurance forms, and the terrible silence of waking without him. Paige knew that. My parents knew that. Yet Paige lifted her champagne glass as Trent opened the folder and removed what looked like a recorded deed. "Noah wanted us to have a real start," she said. "He agreed to sell Mason House to our investment company before he died. The sale closed this morning." For several seconds, I could not understand the words. Mason House was a 3-story brick building on Whitaker Street. The bakery occupied the ground floor. Our apartment was on the second, and the third held an event space Noah and I had restored with our own hands. 22 people depended on that building for their paychecks. It was not simply property. It was the place where Noah had proposed to me beside a broken mixer, the place where we slept on the floor during renovations, the place where he had painted our names beneath the final stair tread because he said every home deserved a secret. Trent laid the deed on the table in front of me. "You have 30 days to relocate the bakery," he said. "We already have preliminary plans to convert the property into luxury short-term rentals. Paige will oversee the design, and your staff will receive information about severance." My mother, Elaine, leaned toward me before I could speak. "Please do not make this ugly, Clara. Your sister has lived in your shadow long enough." My father, Martin, folded his arms. "Noah understood that family assets should benefit the whole family. He was more generous than you." A murmur passed through the room. Paige's future in-laws watched me carefully, waiting for the grieving widow to either collapse or create a scene. I looked down at the deed. Noah's signature appeared above a notary stamp dated 6 days before his death. The document described Mason House as belonging to Noah Mason individually, and the buyer was listed as Blue Heron Renewal LLC. Trent had signed as the company's managing partner. Paige had signed as an authorized member. The price was $3.6 million. I read the first page twice, then turned to the signature page and felt something inside me become very still. I looked up at Trent and said, "You should probably ask your closing attorney who owns the building." His smile tightened. "We already completed a title review." "Then ask for your money back." Paige gave a short laugh. "This is exactly why we did not tell you sooner. You always think you are the smartest person in the room." I closed the folder and slipped it into my tote bag. "Who gave you the original?" Trent's expression changed for less than a second, but I saw it. "Noah did." "No," I said. "Who gave you the document you copied to make this?" My father struck the table with his palm. Glasses jumped against the linen. "Enough. You will not accuse your sister at her engagement dinner." I stood, smoothed the black dress I had worn to Noah's memorial reception, and looked at each of them. My mother appeared offended, my father furious, Paige triumphant, and Trent watchful. "I am going home," I said. "Do not enter Mason House. Contact my employees, or represent yourselves as its owners. Any further communication goes through my attorney." Paige followed me into the hallway. "Clara, wait. We are not trying to hurt you." I turned around. Her diamond ring caught the chandelier light. "You announced my eviction 9 days after my husband died." "It is not an eviction. It is a transition." That is the kind of word people use when they want the victim to make the crime sound polite. Her face hardened. "You have always had everything. The business, the building, Noah, Mom and Dad's respect, until you started acting superior. I finally have a chance to build something, and you are going to ruin it because you cannot stand to see me happy. I looked at the sister whose credit cards I had paid when she was 22, whose rent Noah and I had covered after she quit 3 jobs, whose wedding deposit I had offered to help with before Noah died. You did not build this, I said. You announced that you took it. Then I walked out. In the parking garage, I locked myself inside my car and let my hands shake for exactly 1 minute. After that, I called Naomi Park, the attorney who had handled Mason House, and said, "Someone just handed me a forged deed." She did not waste time comforting me. That was one of the reasons I trusted her. "Photograph every page," she said. "Send it through the secure portal. Do not post online. Do not confront them again. And do not sign anything." I am calling the trustee and the title insurer now. My next call was to the bakery manager. I changed every building code, froze administrative access to our accounting software, and instructed her not to discuss ownership with anyone. Then I drove home through streets. Noah and I had walked together hundreds of times, carrying the false deed in the passenger seat like a live explosive. Sisters, if you have ever been called selfish because you refuse to surrender something you earned, you know the strange clarity that can arrive when guilt finally stops working. I was grieving, frightened, and more tired than I had ever been, but I was not confused. Trent believed he had sold Mason House. Paige believed I would be too broken to fight. My parents believed that if they spoke loudly enough about family, I would return to the role I had played since childhood. The dependable daughter who paid, forgave, and stayed quiet. What none of them understood was that Noah and I had spent 6 years protecting that building from exactly this kind of pressure, and the deed in my bag did not merely fail to transfer Mason House. It proved that someone close to me had taken Noah's private records, copied his signature, and bet my grief would hide the theft. By 7 the next morning, the story had already escaped the family dinner and reached the internet. Paige posted a video from her apartment with no makeup, loose hair, and the careful red eyes of someone who had prepared before pressing record. She said Noah had secretly promised to help her and Trent create affordable housing in downtown Savannah. She said I was refusing to honor his final wishes because I could not tolerate sharing control. She never mentioned luxury rentals. She never mentioned the 30-day notice. Instead, she held up a photograph of Noah at her college graduation and told thousands of viewers that I was using legal technicalities to erase his generosity. Trent reposted the video through his real estate accounts with the caption, "When wealth matters more than family." My mother wrote that grief had made me bitter. My father commented that he was ashamed of the woman I had become. By noon, strangers were leaving 1-star reviews for the bakery. 2 wedding clients asked whether their deposits were safe. A food blogger canceled a feature. Someone taped a handwritten sign to our front door that read, "Honor your husband." I wanted to respond with the trust agreement, the property records, and every receipt showing how often Noah and I had supported Paige. But Naomi stopped me. "Facts are not your first move," she said when we met in her office. "Preservation is your first move." She placed the forged deed beside the genuine property file. The real owner of Mason House was not Noah, me, or any member of my family. 4 years earlier, after a developer offered to buy the entire block, Noah and I had transferred the building into the Mason Community Preservation Trust. We were beneficiaries and operating tenants, but the trust held legal title. Any sale required my written consent, the signature of the independent trustee, a certified appraisal, approval from the Historic District Board, and a 90-day review period. Trent's deed had none of those things. Worse, he had described Noah as sole owner even though public records showed otherwise. "This document should never have passed a competent title examination," Naomi said. "Did money actually change hands?" "Not according to the county," said Margaret Flynn, the trust's independent trustee, joining us by video. She was a retired bank compliance officer who had known Noah's grandmother. "But Blue Heron Renewal applied for a private bridge loan using Mason House as collateral. The lender scheduled final funding for Friday." Naomi turned the screen toward me. "That matters. A forged deed is serious. Attempting to borrow against property you do not own is worse. We need to know who prepared the package, who supplied Noah's records, and whether the notary is real. The notary stamp belonged to a woman named Sophie Bell, the office administrator at Trent's brokerage and one of Paige's bridesmaids. Naomi called the number listed in the state registry. Sophie answered, listened to the first sentence, and hung up. 10 minutes later, Trent texted me directly. Your lawyer is harassing my employee. Stop interfering with a lawful transaction. I forwarded the message without replying. That afternoon, my father came to the bakery. He stood outside the locked office while customers watched from their tables and demanded that I meet him. I let him in only after starting the security recording. He paced between the filing cabinet and Noah's empty desk, his voice low enough to sound controlled. You are destroying your sister over a technical issue. Forgery is not a technical issue. You do not know that it was forged. You told everyone Noah wanted the sale. Were you present when he signed? My father looked toward the window. He spoke to me about taking care of Paige. That was not my question. I am not going to be interrogated by my own daughter. Then leave. He stepped closer. Trent has investors. Paige has signed commitments. If you embarrass them now, they could lose everything. They promised property they did not own. You can fix it. The trust can approve the sale after the fact. You will receive money. Paige will receive her share. Everyone wins. How much were they giving you? His jaw tightened, and I knew before he answered that there was a number. Your mother and I invested in Blue Heron. How much? That is private. How much of the sale price were you promised? He pointed at me. This obsession with money is exactly what Paige said. Noah would be disgusted. The cruelty of using my dead husband as a weapon was so precise that for a moment I could not breathe. Then I remembered the camera above the door and said, You have one chance to tell me whether you gave Trent access to Noah's files. My father said nothing. That silence told me more than a denial would have. He walked out, and 30 minutes later my mother called to say I had humiliated him. When I asked whether she knew about the bridge loan, she began crying. We only wanted something for ourselves, she said. You and Noah had the building. Paige was starting a life. Your father and I have spent years helping both of you. I almost laughed. They had not invested in Paige. They had invested in my compliance. Do not call me again without Naomi present, I said. Clara. Family cannot communicate through lawyers. Family should not communicate through forged deeds. That evening, Trent served the bakery with a demand to surrender possession based on the false sale. It had no court seal and no legal force, but he photographed himself taping it to our door, then posted the image online as proof that I was refusing a lawful order. My employees looked at me with the careful concern people use around someone whose grief has become public property. I gathered them in the kitchen and told them the truth without dramatics. Mason House has not been sold. Your jobs are not disappearing. Our attorney and trustee are handling a fraudulent filing. No one here needs to defend me online. Save screenshots of threats, direct all questions to management, and continue doing your work. One of the youngest bakers raised her hand and asked, Did Mr. Noah really sign something? My voice nearly failed me, but I said, No. He protected this place. I intend to do the same. After everyone left, I sat alone at the stainless steel prep table where Noah used to calculate ingredient costs, and for the first time since the engagement dinner, I cried. Not because I believed Trent would win, but because I wanted Noah beside me. I wanted his calm voice, his crooked smile, and the way he always made difficult things feel shared. At 11:47, Naomi called. The lender has paused funding, but Trent does not know that yet. The state notary division is trying to contact Sophie. She has disappeared from work. Do you think she helped him? I think she is afraid. At 1:30 in the morning, someone knocked on the bakery's side door. I checked the camera and saw Sophie Bell standing in the alley with a backpack pressed against her chest. Rain had soaked through her sweater. Her face was pale, and she kept looking behind her. When I opened the door, she said, I did not notarize Noah's signature. Trent stole my seal and I can prove it. I brought Sophie upstairs to the apartment and gave her one of Noah's old sweatshirts because she was shivering too hard to hold a cup. She sat on the edge of our couch beneath the framed photograph from my wedding and stared at her hands. "I should have come sooner," she said. "I kept telling myself he was bluffing." Her story began 3 weeks before Noah's death, when Trent asked her to prepare a transfer package for Mason House. He claimed Noah wanted to sell quickly and avoid delays. Sophie searched the county record, saw the preservation trust, and told Trent the transaction required additional approvals. He said the trust had been dissolved. When she asked for proof, he became angry. 2 days later, he brought her a deed with Noah's signature already on it and ordered her to notarize it retroactively. She refused. Trent reminded her that he had helped pay for her mother's medical bills and said he could report the money as theft if she did not cooperate. Sophie still refused. Then Noah died. The morning after the accident, Trent told me the situation had become easier, she whispered. He said dead people cannot contradict documents. The sentence chilled the room. Sophie opened her backpack and removed a laptop, 2 external drives, and a small digital recorder. She had copied the brokerage server before leaving. The files included drafts of the forged deed, scanned samples of Noah's signature, emails about the bridge loan, and a spreadsheet titled Family Distribution. Blue Heron Renewal planned to borrow $2.4 million against Mason House, use part of the money to pay off Trent's failing developments, give my parents $300,000, deposit $150,000 into an account controlled by Paige, and retain the rest as management and acquisition fees. Paige believed she and Trent were becoming co-owners of Mason House. The operating agreement told a different story. Trent owned 98% of Blue Heron. Paige owned 2% and had no voting authority. "He was using her too," I said. Sophie nodded. But she knew the deed was false. She opened an audio file recorded in Trent's office 5 days after Noah's death. Paige's voice filled my living room. "Clara will fight if she sees the trust papers." Trent replied, "Not now. She can barely remember to eat. We get the loan funded before she starts thinking clearly." Paige asked, "What if Sophie reports us?" My father answered. I had not known he was in the room, but there was no mistaking his voice. "Sophie will do what she is told. Clara will eventually sign whatever makes the scandal stop," the recording continued. My mother worried that the plan was too aggressive. Paige said I had never shared anything willingly. Trent told them the public would support a young couple over a rich widow. Then my father said he had taken copies of Noah's signature from documents in my parents' safe, including an old personal guarantee Noah signed when he helped them refinance their house. I listened without moving. Noah had guaranteed that loan because my parents were months from foreclosure. My father had repaid his kindness by handing the signature to a fraudster days after his death. Sophie reached for the recorder. "There is more," Trent's voice returned. He explained that after the bridge loan funded, he would default Blue Heron, force a distress sale, and transfer the building to another company he controlled. Paige would lose her supposed ownership. My parents would be blamed for the false documents, and Trent would keep the proceeds through layered management contracts. Paige asked whether he loved her. He laughed and told her not to become sentimental. The recording ended. I expected satisfaction at learning Trent planned to betray them too. Instead, I felt hollow. Paige had helped him target me, but she was still my sister, and I could see the trap closing around her. Sophie looked at me carefully. "Are you going to save her?" "I am going to stop him," I said. "That is not the same thing." Naomi arrived before dawn with a state investigator and a cybercrime detective. Sophie gave a formal statement, surrendered copies of the records, and agreed to cooperate. The detective confirmed that the strongest evidence would come from allowing Trent to continue toward the scheduled funding while the lender and title company documented each representation. No money would be released, and Mason House was safe. The investigators wanted proof of intent, conspiracy, and the roles of everyone involved. Naomi looked at me. "You do not have to participate beyond turning over evidence. What would participation require?" "Trent expects a family settlement before Friday. If you appear willing to sign, he may present the final documents and repeat his demands on record. Then I will appear willing. Naomi frowned. Clara, this is not a revenge performance. You follow instructions, say nothing unnecessary, and let the professionals control the room. I understand. For the next 48 hours, I acted like a woman breaking under pressure. I removed my public statement from the bakery website. I sent Paige a message saying I wanted to end the conflict privately. I told my mother I was considering a compromise. Trent responded within 4 minutes and proposed a final signing at Mason House on Friday evening, after the bakery closed. He wanted the building itself as the setting because he believed the symbolism would make me surrender. He also wanted the private lender, a title attorney, my parents, Paige, and 2 investors present. No more surprises, he wrote. We finish this as adults. Naomi drafted my reply. I will attend and review the settlement. Paige called that night. Her voice sounded softer than it had at the dinner. Thank you for coming around. I have not agreed to anything. But you will. Once you see the numbers, you will understand this helps everyone. Does it help you? She paused. What is that supposed to mean? Have you read Blue Heron's operating agreement? Trent handles that side. Read it before Friday. Her tone sharpened. You are trying to turn me against him because you cannot stand that someone chose me. Paige, Noah and I chose you repeatedly. We paid your rent. We cleared your debt. We gave you work when no one else would. You learned to call rescue a right, and now Trent is using that belief to lead you into a crime. She hung up. An hour later, my mother left a voicemail accusing me of poisoning Paige's relationship. My father sent one sentence. Sign, or you will lose your family forever. I stared at the message and realized he still believed family was something he could withdraw as punishment. Then I opened the hidden stair tread Noah had painted years earlier. Inside was a folded note I had forgotten about, written during our first winter in the building. Clara, it said, if this place ever becomes more burden than shelter, choose yourself. Brick can be repaired. You cannot. I sat on the step with the note against my chest and cried until the apartment windows turned gray with mourning. By Friday, I no longer wanted to destroy anyone. I wanted the fraud stopped, my employees protected, Noah's name cleared, and the people who had used my grief removed from my life. That was enough. At 6 o'clock Friday evening, the bakery doors were locked, and the event room upstairs had been arranged like a closing office. Trent placed document folders at every seat along the long oak table Noah and I had built from reclaimed church pews. Paige wore a cream suit and her engagement ring. My parents sat beside her, trying to appear solemn and reasonable. Across from them were the private lender's representative, a title attorney, and 2 men Trent described as development partners. Naomi sat beside me. Margaret Flynn, the trust's independent trustee, occupied the chair at the end of the table. Trent seemed annoyed by her presence but recovered quickly. We are all here to resolve a painful misunderstanding, he began. Clara has agreed to honor Noah's wishes and transfer any remaining interest in Mason House to Blue Heron Renewal. I agreed to review your settlement, I said. That is what we are doing. Trent slid a deed and released toward me. Once you sign, the social media posts come down, the ownership dispute ends, and your bakery can lease the first floor for 12 months while you relocate. My mother leaned close. Take the grace being offered. I looked at her. Grace from whom? My father exhaled impatiently. Do not start. Naomi placed a small recorder in the center of the table. For clarity, this meeting is being recorded with the consent of the lender and title counsel. Trent smiled. Excellent. Transparency protects everyone. I agree, Naomi said. The title attorney opened his file. Before execution, I need confirmation that Mr. Trent Vale continues to represent that Noah Mason owned Mason House individually and transferred valid title to Blue Heron Renewal, LLC. Correct, Trent said. And the notarization dated the 15th was performed in person by Sophie Bell? Trent's eyes moved toward Naomi, then back to the attorney. Correct. And Paige Carter witnessed Noah's intent to sell? Yes, Paige said. but her voice was quiet. Did you witness him sign? The attorney asked. Paige looked at Trent. I was told he signed. That is not the question, Naomi said. Did you see Noah sign the deed? Paige's fingers closed around her ring. No. My father leaned forward. This interrogation is unnecessary. Noah discussed the sale with me. When? Naomi asked. Several times. Name one date. I do not keep a calendar of family conversations. Margaret opened a red binder. Fortunately, property ownership does not depend on family memories. She passed certified records around the table. Mason House has been owned by the Mason Community Preservation Trust since March 12, 4 years ago. Noah Mason held no individual title that he could convey. Clara Mason cannot sell it alone. I cannot sell it alone. Any transfer requires 5 separate conditions, none of which occurred. Trent shook his head. The trust was revoked. It is irrevocable, Margaret said. The original is recorded with the county. The Historic District Board has never received a sale application. No appraisal was commissioned. No beneficiary consent exists. The deed you filed transferred nothing. The lender's representative closed his notebook. Mr. Vale, you certified that the trust had been terminated. That information came from the family. Trent pointed toward my father. Martin provided the records. My father's face reddened. You told me the trust language was meaningless. I told you we could resolve it. You said Clara would sign after the loan funded. Paige turned slowly toward Trent. After the loan funded? Naomi placed Blue Heron's operating agreement in front of her. You should read page 11. Paige scanned the paragraph. Her face changed. 2%? She whispered. You told me we were equal partners. That agreement was temporary, Trent said. Do not let them distract you. No voting rights, Paige continued. No authority over sale proceeds. Trent reached for the document, but she pulled it away. Naomi opened a second folder. The lender also received a distribution schedule. Mr. Vale planned to use the building as collateral, pay selected family members, cover debts from 3 unrelated developments, and retain control of the remaining funds. Blue Heron would then default, allowing another Vale-controlled company to purchase the loan at a discount. One of the development partners stood. You said Blue Heron had clean title. Sit down, Trent snapped. The man did not. He gathered his papers and moved toward the door. The title attorney said, Before anyone leaves, there is a further issue regarding the notarization. The event room doors opened, and Sophie entered with 2 state investigators. Paige covered her mouth. Trent rose so quickly that his chair struck the floor. She stole confidential company information. I preserved evidence after you forged my seal, Sophie said. Her voice shook, but she did not look away. I never witnessed Noah's signature. I refused to notarize the deed. You copied my stamp and threatened me. Trent turned to the lender. She is a disgruntled employee. Naomi pressed a key on her laptop. The screen behind us displayed the document's metadata. Creation dates after Noah's death, scanned signature files, edited notary images, and user accounts traced to Trent's office. Then the audio from Sophie's recorder played. Paige's voice admitted concern about the trust. My father promised I would sign under pressure. Trent described me as too grief-stricken to think clearly. My mother began crying before her own voice appeared on the recording. What if Clara never forgives us? She had asked. My father answered, She always does. Hearing that sentence in the room felt different from hearing it in my apartment. It sounded like the summary of my entire life. Trent lunged toward the laptop, but one of the investigators stepped between us. Do not touch anything. Paige stood, staring at her fiancé. You were going to leave me with 2% and the criminal documents. Paige, listen to me. You said we were building a future. We still can if everyone stops panicking. Did you ever intend for me to own this building? Trent glanced around the table, calculating, and in that pause she received her answer. She pulled off her ring and placed it on the forged deed. You used me. You helped me, he said. The words struck harder than shouting. Paige looked at me, tears gathering in her eyes. Clara, I did not know all of it. You knew enough. I thought Noah wanted to help us. You said on the recording that I would fight when I saw the trust papers. Trent said the trust was only a technical barrier. You announced that you owned my home while I was still choosing flowers for Noah's memorial. She began to cry. My mother reached for her, but Paige stepped away. My father pointed at Trent. This was his plan. Naomi turned toward him. Who supplied Noah's signature samples? He looked at the floor. Martin, my mother whispered. Elaine, he warned. You took them from the safe, she said. You told me it was only to prove Noah's intent. You promised no one would be hurt. I felt no victory watching them collapse. I felt tired. You were all willing for me to be hurt, I said. You simply assumed I would survive quietly. The lead investigator informed Trent that he was being detained on suspicion of forgery, attempted financial fraud, identity theft, unlawful use of a notary seal, and submitting false statements to a lender. He began speaking rapidly about misunderstandings and family authorization. The second investigator asked my father to remain for questioning. My mother gripped my arm as I stood. Please do not let them take him. I gently removed her hand. I am not doing this to him. He made decisions. He is your father. And Noah was my husband. She looked as if I had struck her. Trent was escorted downstairs through the bakery he had intended to seize. My father followed with an attorney's card in his hand, no longer shouting. Paige remained at the table after everyone else moved away. What happens to me? She asked Naomi. That depends on the evidence and whether you cooperate. Paige looked at me. Will you help me? Every instinct trained into me since childhood demanded that I say yes. I remembered paying her debts, defending her to employers, and driving through the night when she called from a party 2 states away. I also remembered Noah's note beneath the stair. I will tell the truth, I said. I will not ask anyone to punish you unfairly, but I will not rescue you from the consequences. She lowered her head. Do you hate me? No, I said. That would keep me tied to you. I am choosing distance. Then I walked downstairs, unlocked the front door, and stood beneath the old green awning while the investigators' cars pulled away into the Savannah night. The legal consequences unfolded over the next 5 months without the instant drama my family had expected from the internet. The bridge loan never funded. Blue Heron's claim was removed from the county record, and the lender issued a written confirmation that Mason House had never served as valid collateral. Trent's real estate license was suspended within weeks. He eventually pleaded guilty to multiple fraud and forgery charges after Sophie's records, the office metadata, and his lender certifications left little room for denial. He received prison time, but not the exaggerated decades people online predicted. More importantly to me, he was ordered to repay the lender's investigation costs, compensate Sophie for damage to her career, and stay away from Mason House. My father admitted providing Noah's signature samples and lying about Noah's intentions. Because he cooperated and had not created the documents himself, he avoided prison, but he received probation, community service, and a restitution order. To satisfy the financial penalties and the debts they had hidden from me, my parents sold their lake property. My mother sent letters every week at first. Some blamed Trent, some blamed grief, and some asked how I could abandon them when they needed me. I returned everyone unopened through Naomi's office. Paige cooperated fully. Her charges were reduced, but she still entered a diversion program, paid restitution, and completed hundreds of hours of community service. She lost her job after the recordings became public. The engagement ended. For a while, she moved back in with our parents, which seemed like the beginning of the same old pattern. But 6 months later, she took a bookkeeping position in another city and began repaying the money Noah and I had previously given her. She emailed me once to say, I finally understand that every time you saved me, I learned that someone else would pay. I did not answer immediately. 3 days later, I wrote, Understanding is a beginning. It is not the same as trust. We exchanged no more messages that year. Sophie kept her notary commission after the investigation cleared her. She left Trent's brokerage and accepted an administrative position with the title company that helped expose the fraud. On her first day, she brought pastries to the bakery staff and cried when they applauded her. The online mob moved on quickly, as online mobs do. The food blogger who had canceled our feature asked to reschedule. I declined. Instead, I gave the interview to a local reporter who had waited for records before writing anything. The article was not titled "Greedy Widow Refuses Family." It was titled, "Historic Savannah Bakery Survives Attempted Property Fraud. Business Returned. 2 of our canceled weddings rebooked. No employee lost a paycheck. Those victories mattered more than seeing anyone arrested." On the first anniversary of Noah's death, I closed the bakery for the afternoon and invited the staff, Margaret, Naomi, Sophie, and a few of Noah's closest friends upstairs. We did not discuss Trent. We did not discuss the deed. We told stories about Noah burning his first batch of croissants, dancing badly during inventory, and pretending not to cry when we opened the doors for the first time. Then I showed everyone the small brass plaque installed beneath the stair tread. It read, "Build what shelters people." That evening, after the others left, I carried 2 cups of coffee to the rooftop. One was for me. The other I placed beside Noah's old chair because grief does not disappear when justice arrives. It changes shape. I looked across the city and understood that I had spent most of my life confusing love with availability. I had believed being a good daughter and sister meant remaining reachable no matter how often people hurt me. Noah had loved me differently. He never asked me to shrink, pay, or surrender proof of my loyalty. The following spring, Mason House began hosting a free monthly supper for young widows and widowers. There were no speeches about strength. We ate, talked when we wanted, and allowed silence when we did not. Sometimes Paige's name appeared on my phone, and I let it ring. Sometimes I missed my mother. Sometimes I dreamed that my father walked through the bakery door and apologized without excuses. Healing did not require me to pretend those feelings were gone. It required me to stop letting them make decisions for me. Mason House remained standing, not as a fortress against my family, but as the life Noah and I had built together, and the life I was learning to continue alone. I had not won because Trent went to prison, or because Paige lost her engagement. I won the night I understood that protecting my home, my work, and my peace did not make me cruel. It made me responsible for the one person my family had always expected me to sacrifice: myself.